Hello, I'm early. Figured I might as well come on early to make sure it's all working. You've got the back of my phone there. Hi, I'll see if anybody joins on. I am like 3 minutes early, so I'll just kind of hang about. Who have we got? That Sarah, I think. Hello, Sarah, and somebody that's a profile picture I don't recognise. I didn't put a title on my bloody video, did I? Darn it. I will try to add a title later. Hello, hello. Hi, Alicia. Hello, Elaine. And Marie, hello. And Lynn, hello. Lots of people that I know. So, where we are, Manchester, we have good weather for the day. Yay! Makes a nice change. How many more? How long do I wait? I certainly need to wait till 6 o'clock, I guess, don't I? Hi, Tina. Hello, Louise. Gosh, lots of you. I'm hoping that my dogs aren't going to bark. I've got Lyric wandering around in the garden. He's quite happy doing Lyric things. And the rest of them are locked away, and hopefully they'll be fine as long as nothing comes past. What's that? Looking forward to this have a very reactive boy who's brilliant and flyable, and I want to run him in a team. Angela Davis, yes, hopefully we can help you with that. There is a very, very, very large bumblebee out there, but it's in an area that my dogs can't get to. He will need to be removed. Probably not by me, I'm scared of bees. Hello, Daryl. Where are we? Angela. Susie, hello. So, we're still a minute early, so I don't really want to start until my actual start time, because that would be a bit unfair. Haven't done very much today. I've had a self-care day. So we've got some likes, we've got 30 people watching, that's a lot. Sam Borden, hello. Lisa Kennedy, hello. Diane, hello. Hello everyone. Terry Cameron, I don't think I know you, but hi. I know Sue, hi. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I've done lives before, I've done them in my own small groups, I've done presentations as part of the UK Flyball League board, but this is a little bit more worldwide, so yeah, I am a little bit nervous. Okay, we're on 6 o'clock, I'm just going to start. So I guess I should introduce myself for those who don't know me. My name is Vicky Daw. I own Daw's Paws Dog Training. I think I set that up in around 2009. Started off probably as what you'd call a balance trainer, and through the years have gone more into the 4-3 aversive-free. I'm entirely 4-3 aversive-free now. I think it was probably 2 or 3 years after I started training that I really took hold of that route and ran with it. So also I need to give thanks to Ruby and her admin team, who are doing an incredible job. This conference is absolutely amazing. I've got so many videos to catch up on. I have watched quite a lot, but definitely not enough. There are tons that I'm like, oh my god, I really want to watch that. So yeah, thanks to all the people that have spoken so far. You've been amazing, and hopefully I don't mess this up too much. With regards to questions, probably best to leave them to the end, but if you do have something sort of burning that's relative to what I've said, by all means put it in and I'll try my best to answer it. If not, I'll probably scroll through at the end and go through stuff and hopefully answer your questions. So, reactivity and aggression in dog sports. First, I think we should address kind of the difference or the differences between reactivity and aggression, or the way that I see them, the way that I will be addressing them. So reactivity generally is literally reacting to a stimulus. So it could be that it could be a car, a person, a bike, a dog. Usually people and dogs are the main ones, dogs usually being the number one. But they, they can be reactive to an inanimate object, such as, a statue or something like that. They are reacting to it. It's also often caused by barriers, so leads, gates, fences. That often is a cause of reactivity, and it can turn into aggression. I find if they're allowed to practice it for a very long time, it can turn to aggression because they get so frustrated all the time. They kind of get angry, and aggression is born through kind of anger, I guess. Now, aggression, I'm really going to be talking about working with dogs that, yes, are aggressive, but they're not the kind of dogs that are going to be seeking out to cause harm. Aggression in the way that I look at it is an intent to cause harm, and you can have an aggressive dog that's kind of pretty cool so long as they're left alone. They're the dogs that I would say can be used for sport. The dogs, and they are a rare beast, thankfully. There are some dogs that will actively seek out another dog to attack, to harm, potentially have the predatory drift, so that they see them as something other than a dog, or that they have had such a poor upbringing, or the genetic side of it has caused them to do nothing but want to cause harm to another being, and that can be people as well. So when I'm talking about reactivity and aggression, I am talking about dogs that, yes, they may aggress. Even a reactive dog that isn't generally aggressive can aggress and show aggressive behaviours, but generally they're not seeking to cause harm. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of make that clear. You can have a reactive dog that isn't in any way aggressive. Most of them, when they're in that state, if they're faced with something that they can't cope with, yes, they will use aggression. But there are lots of them that really aren't aggressive until they're really, really cornered. There can be aggressive dogs that are not reactive, and there can be dogs that are both reactive and aggressive. So, like I say, the aggression, the aggressive behaviours I'm talking about is more when their space is invaded, they will revert to aggression quite quickly. So we have a lot of people on, so I just kind of want to get an idea of who my audience is. So if you have a reactive or aggressive dog, or both, give me a heart, and we'll see how many of you are watching that are dealing with these dogs now. So I know there's a lag, isn't there, on these, so I guess I'll wait a few seconds. Okay, we've got a few there. Okay, we've got quite a lot. I have a reactive dog and I have an aggressive dog. My reactive dog, yes, if she was really cornered, I think she would use teeth. I don't really think she would go in to cause an awful lot of damage, but I do think she'd use teeth. I have an aggressive dog that is not in the slightest bit reactive, but if his space is invaded, he will revert to aggression. So I have one of both. I don't really have one that's in the middle. So yeah, that's quite a lot of you that are dealing with these dogs. So firstly, I want to let you know there's good news. It absolutely can be done. Obviously, like I said, I've got two of them. Both of them race in the sport of flyball. So it can be done. You need to make sure that your motivations are genuine, I suppose is the right word to use. Making sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Now, I understand that some of you will already be embedded into your sport, and so you'll want to try your hardest to get the dog into that sport, and that's cool, that's absolutely fine. But do bear in mind that depending on where your dog is at, what the reasons for their reactivity, I'm just going to use the word reactivity because generally that's what we're dealing with anyway, and it's less of a mouthful. What level your dog is at, what triggers them, what they can cope with, what they can't cope with, and being able to have the patience to work them through it and to be on their side, to see things from their point of view. So I think there may be some movement outside, I'm sorry. There's not a lot I can do because they're kind of shut away. They'll stop in a minute. That's Neptune, by the way, my reactive girl. So there are some sports that I would say are easier to get your dog into dog sports, and there are some that are more difficult to get your dog into dog sports. And if you're not already embedded into a sport, this may influence your choice, and whatever you choose is entirely up to you. So in my opinion, and I could be very wrong, but I would assume, because I only actually compete in flyball, so I don't, as much as I have a kind of a bit of knowledge about general dog sport, other dog sports, it's very generalized. So if I say anything that's incorrect, please correct me, because I really don't have much knowledge on anything other than flyball. So I would assume your solo sports, such as agility, disc, hoopers, that kind of thing, they're going to be the easiest sports to get these kind of dogs into, because you're not having to work around such a group activity. So the more dogs are around them, the more difficult it's going to be for them. Now, obviously, you do have the show environment to combat. With any dog sport, there's always, if you're going into competitions, there's always going to be that environment that you need to work on before you actually get your dog into competition. The more difficult sports that I would assume are going to be your group sports, so the likes of flyball, the racing. There's a lot of people that do whippet racing, the canicross, the sled dog, dryland sled dogging and stuff that they do there. So obviously that is all kind of team sports, group sports, where they're going to be surrounded by a lot of dogs. So I'm going to go out and say they're going to be the more difficult ones to get these dogs into. Bite work, I would guess, again, I have very little knowledge of that, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say reactive or aggressive dogs are never going to be suitable for bite work. I believe they need to be very confident and well-rounded and happy and all that. So if you have a dog that is nervous or aggressive, reactive, I very much doubt that bite work is going to be something that you're going to want to get your dog into. So you've chosen your sport, whatever that may be. The first thing you're going to need to do is to learn about desensitization and counter conditioning. So your desensitization is exposing your dog at a low level to the stimulus that it's worried about. So for example, if it's dogs, we're going to kind of work on dogs here. Obviously it can be people, you can use them just as well. To work out your dog's threshold. So it could be that your dog is absolutely fine if the dog is only 20 feet away, or it could be that they need 50 feet or 100 feet. You need to work them behind that threshold line. So the desensitization would just be working them behind that threshold, exposing them to the stimulus, the dog or the person or the whatever that is, say, 50 foot away, and just having them there and having them aware of that stimulus without reacting. And the more exposure you give them, eventually they will start to feel a little bit more comfortable and you can creep up. Now, I don't know that anybody uses desensitization alone. I certainly don't. I think it would take a really, really, really long time to just use desensitization. So we also work alongside counter conditioning. Counter conditioning is you are changing the dog's emotional response to whatever it is that they're frightened of. Bearing in mind, I should have mentioned earlier with the whole reactivity and aggression when I was explaining that, the vast majority of reactivity and aggression is fear-based. Dogs will use aggression, and the barking from the reactivity is their way of saying, go away, give me space. Obviously, if people see a dog barking, they're not going to want to approach it, so it is a tactic that works for them, and a lot of dogs will see that and see that as a cue to stay away. So it is something that works for them, and that's why they use it so often. Plus, as they get more wound up, they can't help but bark. But yeah, so the majority of reactivity and aggression is fear-based. So working with your counter conditioning, you're working to change the way the dog feels about the situation. So alongside your desensitization, where you're making sure that they're never too close to that dog, say, sorry, I'm just being distracted by Lyric because he's running around with his boomer ball and it's quite amusing. So yeah, you're working alongside the desensitization and the counter conditioning. You've got your dog at the 50 foot. You've got it beyond there and it's totally cool. Now what you want to do is change the way they're feeling about that dog. So you want to take them to the threshold line, let them see that dog. So at the threshold line, they're going to feel okay, but not completely perfect, because the second they step over that line is going to be where they start to feel a little bit less comfortable. So on their threshold and beyond it, behind it should I say, is where you want to be doing your counter conditioning. So you're going to be feeding them high value treats, you're going to be playing with them, doing games with them, whatever, and slowly you're going to decrease that space while using both desensitization and counter conditioning. So you need to get yourself a trainer. There are going to be some of you that are going to be self-skilled enough that you can possibly take on this by yourself, but having somebody alongside you, watching you, making sure that you're not pushing your dog too far, can be absolutely invaluable. Now, I would assume the majority of you on here are already using Force Free, or in fact, you know what, I'm not going to assume that. There might be some of you that that are learning about this, and that's absolutely great. So the reasons we use the Force Free approach, especially with your reactive dogs, is because we're trying to make them feel better about the situation. We're trying to make them feel happier. We're trying to make them feel safe, because reactive dogs don't feel safe. And if you're going to use punishment, no matter how gentle or non-invasive you feel that technique is, if it's just stopping a behaviour without any kind of reinforcement, all you're doing is suppressing that dog's behaviour. You're telling them, stop. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't care. All I want you to do is to not react. And in all honesty, it's not that difficult to use punishment to stop a dog from doing something. You can use the check leads and the prongs and the small, thin, I think I've just recently learned they're called French leads, I think. And you can jerk them and you can hurt them, and they'll soon learn that every time that I show aggression or I show that I'm unhappy, I'm going to get jerked. So I'm just not going to show that behaviour anymore. The behaviour is still there. The emotions are still there. And you're basically creating a ticking time bomb, because that dog is never feeling emotionally stable about the situation that they're in. So it is so important that you use a method that the dog finds enjoyable, that you can see the dog is looking at the thing that they were scared of and then looking back to you and going, hey, I did it, give me a treat. They're safe, they feel safe, and that's what's important. So that was a little rant there, sorry. There are 2 videos that I've watched recently. There's one that I haven't watched yet that I do need to watch. So that is the Crash Course in Reactivity. I'm sorry I didn't write down the name of the lady who did it, but you should find that. I think that was on yesterday or Friday, sorry. So I haven't watched it, but it sounds really interesting. It sounds like she gives you literally a crash course in reactivity, so that's definitely something you should watch. The other one is the Slow Thinking is Life-Saving, and that's by Laura Donaldson. I watched that one, and that is about teaching the dogs to look at that game, which some of you will know, some of you don't. If you don't, have a Google. Otherwise, I'm totally going to go off on a tangent, which Alicia will be laughing at right now, because I have a habit of doing that. So it's disengagement, and look at that with Laura Donaldson. So Slow Thinking is Life-Saving. Definitely watch that video. Really good. The other one is the Errorless Learning video, and that's by Juliana Willems. Now, I said, as I was writing this out in my notes, I have Errorless Learning as part of my protocol, generally anyway, but particularly for reactive dogs. That's a laughing face. I'm going to guess that was Alicia. So, using Errorless Learning, if you watch the video, she'll explain it far better than I can. Yes, exactly. It's saying, no, shut up, I don't care what you feel. We use look at that when other dogs are training. Cool. I think queuing would be issuing some solo sports. Yes, definitely. Yeah, okay. So, bugger, I've looked at the comments and I've got lost. Okay, so Errorless Learning. When you're training a dog to do a sport or anything, obviously you want them to get it right. Like at least 80% of the time, they're going to make some mistakes because, you know, they're not robots, and we're not always perfect teachers, so there are going to be mistakes. But when you're working with a reactive dog, those mistakes can lead to bigger mistakes, and we don't really want to avoid those as much as possible. So yeah, look at that video and learn about errorless learning as much as you can. So when it's time to train for your sport, you've chosen your sport, you've started your desensitization, your count conditioning, and you've found a club that you're gonna train with, or you're already training with a club. You want to do your desensitization and counter conditioning separately from the sport to start with. You do not want to be trying to train the two together, because that's far too much and it's not going to work, and the dog's going to get it wrong, and they're going to learn that actually when I go into this environment it's a little bit scary, it's too stressy, it's too overwhelming, and they're not going to enjoy it. And the whole point of dog sports is that the dog enjoys the sport. So train those two things completely separately to start with. Then you're going to teach your dog this sport, whether it be agility, flyball, whatever. When I'm talking about stuff, I'm generally going to be talking about flyball because I completely understand that. I know how to train it. So if you have anything specific that's not flyball, pop me a question and hopefully I will be able to understand it and give you a way through it. So once you I don't know what, so we tend to start our training with recalls. So we'll have the dog, I don't know, for those of you that don't know flyball, we have a flyball box, and then the run is 50 foot long, and then we also have a run back area that's generally about 50 foot long as well. When we're first training, we don't use jumps, we just send the dog in a straight line to a handler and a tug who's, you know, running just ahead of them, so they're chasing down that tug. So one of the first things we teach, even when they're little teeny tiny puppies, is recall work. So I am not going to start using introducing another dog until that dog, your reactive dog, I'm going to call him your green dog, until he is absolutely 100% able to perform that completely errorless. Completely errorless. If they're still making mistakes, that's fine. You know, that, like I say, they're not robots. If they're still making mistakes, you need to stay at that level or go back and make it easier for them. Don't have them continually making mistakes, because again, that's not errorless learning. So yeah, we've done the recalls. They're absolutely 100% every single time. They're not making any mistakes. They know exactly what they're doing. Time to introduce your stooge dog. Your stooge dog is so important. It has to be a dog that is pretty calm, isn't going to make loads of noise, and if your green dog does give chase to that dog, because they're dogs after all and mistakes can happen, bearing in mind we're not using an aggressive dog here, so worst case scenario is it's going to run around and bark or whatever. It's not actually going to seek out and do that dog harm. That the dog firstly is going to come away from the green dog that's chasing them. Secondly, isn't going to show any aggression back to that green dog. And thirdly, very importantly, isn't going to upset your stooge dog. Because if you upset your stooge dog, you are losing the most important part of your training tools. Stooge dogs are absolutely vital. We have a couple that are just, I literally couldn't be without. We're watching the sun catch up and getting ready for it. No problem, Sarah. Thanks for coming. It is so important that you use the right stooge dog. If you have one that's going to react back, that's going to upset your reactive dog, or equally encourage it, because some of them find it a little bit of a game to play barky, chasey. Or it's going to upset them. They're not going to have the confidence to do it again. And equally, it needs to be, like I say, that if it was to be chased by the reactive dog, that it's not going to get upset. It's just going to be able to brush it off. Making sure that you're not continually putting that stooge dog in the same position again. So if it's been chased once, maybe try the green dog again. If it does it again, well, to be fair, if it does it again, you need to go back a step with your green dog. It doesn't need to be doing the stooge dog work again. But say you brought it out for another dog and that dog did the same thing, the dog's going to start losing confidence. So you need to think about what you're asking of your stooge dogs as much as what you're asking of your green dogs. So your steps need to be done slowly. you need to make sure that the dog is understanding. You need to be aware of your dog's emotions. You need to be aware of where your dog's head is at. My phone died. I'm out walking the oldest. Hi, Lynn. Okay. You need to be aware of where your dog's head is at all times. Because with them being reactive, so if I'm doing a one-to-one with a reactive dog, we'll probably spend half an hour or so to 40 minutes. And in that time, I'll aim for like three greets with a reactive dog. And after that, those short sessions, that dog's tired. That dog is really, really tired. So bear in mind, you're also doing high energy sport, regardless of what it is. They're all pretty much high energy. It's going to take a lot out of them. So you need to be aware of what you're asking of them. So what I didn't say about, so you're introducing your stooge dog to your head-to-head recalls, which basically means you have a dog in that lane, a dog in that lane, and they're running back to the handlers at the same time. Now, I do not start with my green dog and my stooge dog racing against each other. Depending on the reactivity level of my dog, of my green dog, I'm going to have them doing a recall, and I'm going to bring my stooge dog into the arena, into the training area. And again, that might need to be 50 foot away. It might be okay that at 10 foot away. Assess your green dog. Is he looking at the other dog? Does he look worried? Does he look like he's struggling with his instinct to chase? Your whippets and your border collies are pretty good at that. But if it all's good and the dog's completely focused, he's noticed that other dog, that's important. They know the dog's there. Notice the other dog, and he's like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm playing this game. I love this game so much. I don't really care about that other dog. And he's doing his, doing what you've asked him to without error. You'll then bring the green dog, the stooge dog, sorry, a little bit closer and a little bit closer until they're basically within that, your agility arena or your flyball, they're actually within the racing environment, or the I don't know what an agility set up is called, but they're in that environment. But again, I'm talking about the flyball. Then the next thing would be, I would have the stooge dog right at the back of the ring in the run back area. And then I might have the stooge dog moving around. Then I might have the stooge dog barking. Then I might have them tugging with a toy. So I'm going to do all these stages before I even introduce them to doing a recall. Okay, so those are all ways of introducing the stooge dog to your green dog without upsetting them and letting them know, hey, do you know what? There's going to be another dog around here. And I want to make sure that you're really comfortable in this environment. Excuse me. So the next stage I would do, so I would have my two dogs ready to release, because my green dog is doing absolutely awesome, doesn't care about the other dog. And then I'm going to have my green dog go and leave that dog behind, go and do its recall. And then I will release the stooge dog. So obviously your dog's just on a run, he's tugging on his tug, or he's eating his treats, whatever his motivation is. And then suddenly that stooge dog has arrived in the area. All good, and I'm bearing in mind this is not going to be one session, this is going to be over a number of sessions. All good, we're going to switch them round so that the stooge dog goes first, and he's tugging at the bottom area, and then your green dog is going to go. And then eventually we're going to do staggered releases, so you have stooge dog, green dog, so it would be stooge dog goes, green dog goes, and so on. Hopefully you understand what I mean by that. So then you have your introducing them, so you're still working on your separate training, separate desensitization, count conditioning, and slowly introducing another dog to each step that the dog is completely successful at. You also need to look at the show environment, because like I said before, no matter what sport it is you're into, there's a show environment to contend with, and they are busy. It's a lot to ask, so that's the first thing that you're going to need to deal with. And as somebody said before, queuing in agility. Now, I don't know how closely you guys queue. That would be something that you definitely need to work on separately. I certainly wouldn't get your dog so it's absolutely smashing it, it's going around its agility course, and there's dogs, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 dogs around the area, and it's totally cool about it. You don't want your first his or her first experience of their agility career going into a show environment, having to pass through loads of people, then queuing up and going nuts all over the place because it can't cope, and then go into the agility ring and just either shut down, forget what it's doing, run around like an idiot, going back at the other dogs that are around the arena. You don't want that to happen after all the hard work you've put in. So that's another step that we need to take. And that is basically, that is where you're going to do the two things at the same time. So you are going to start doing your desensitization and counter conditioning at a show environment. But the first thing that your dog needs is space. Space is always the thing that they need. Once they have a space and they're comfortable, you can work on reducing that distance. So hopefully you're not going to be in a place where you literally walk into the field and there's crowds of people everywhere. There's going to be somewhere that you can go off. And if that is the case, you're at the wrong show. You need to find another show to go to take this dog to somewhere that it can be successful. So you are at your show and you found a nice bit of grass that nobody else is around, and you're just going to chill there with your dog and play games, because being over there and then in like 50 or 100 foot away, there's a whole ton of stuff going on. That's enough. Just be with them, chill with them, play with them, feed them, whatever. That is all they need to be doing, probably for their first 2 or 3 times at a show. Then you will start to decrease that distance over time until they can be, you know, milling about in these crowds, paying attention to you, focusing on you, looking at what's going on, feeling happy, feeling relaxed, feeling cool about the situation. It would probably be a good idea to have some sort of label on you or your dog that you need space, because it's not fair to get to the point where you're able to walk around and mooch about and you don't want people or dogs coming approaching you. You need this to be really quiet one-on-one time. It's not usually the dog on the course, it's the 10 in the queue that get reactive due to the movement in the ring, but reactive to the ones next in the queue. Right, so they're not reacting to what's going on in the ring, they're reacting to each other because it's quite a tight space, yeah. So working through your show environment, if you've got them to the point where they're really, really cool. So for flyball, and I don't know about other sports, but once we can like have our own space, and then once we're ready to go in and race, we can just go in and then we can come out. So we don't need to be around other dogs. We can be, but it's not necessary. So the queuing and agility, how much space, there's a technique called squishing or pressing to help with queuing and passing dogs at show. We'll try and remember where from. I think I know what you mean, where you would hold the dog close and just kind of shimmy past as quickly as you can. If your dog has been introduced to that correctly, yes, I would imagine that would work. But I need to know what sort of distance you guys have with your queuing, and how long are you going to be queuing for, because that can be an awful lot to ask. If you're going to be queuing for, I think 10 minutes is doable. Please tell me it's not much more than 10 minutes. 10 minutes would be totally doable if you can have, like, I don't know, 5 foot of space. Is that too much to ask? But you would need to do a ton of counter conditioning to make sure that they're comfortable in that environment. But you don't want to be going into that straight away, because that's going to be way too much for them, and they're gonna fail at it. You need to make sure that you're setting them up for success the whole way. You're still using this errorless learning protocol. Nothing new. Yeah, so I want to know what the gaps are between each dog when you're queuing. Can you have more space? Can you, you know, bring some cones and put a cone in front of you and behind you and say, hey, you know, I'm not taking up anyone else's spot, but this is the space that I need. Should be 6 feet apart, but that's often not the case. However, you can ask someone to save your space while you move out of the way. Yeah, I've heard that people do save your space. I think that's probably something that might have to be used kind of in a forever situation, maybe. I mean, I guess it's possible that you could get the dog to be really cool in that environment. Going forward, agility cues will be socially distanced, so well worth it for reactive dogs. Yeah, definitely. You can be close as a metre at some. Yeah, so look, being realistic, that's asking a lot. How long are they roughly queuing for as well? I need to know. Yeah, that's asking an awful lot. You need to be thinking about what's realistically achievable for your dog, because even if you get them to the point where they're really happy queuing, you've been focusing them an awful lot and using their brain an awful lot in that time before you actually take them into the ring to perform. So I think long term it probably is doable. The queue is often also in the walkways so you can have dogs on 3 sides. 10 minutes-ish. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, 10 minutes I think is doable, but I would actually start training for this. So I would go to where the cues are and start with, if you're assuming, you know, your dog is ready for this, you've done all the training for it, you've already prepped them for it, they're going to smash this first session, take them to the cueing area and give them 30 seconds, a minute, take them out, and slowly build that time up until they're really comfortable in that environment. And again, making sure you're wearing something that lets people know that you've got a reactive dog, and just to give you some space. Normally cue up to it can easily 20 minutes plus. Oh, that's a really long time. My sport doesn't cue but always gets crowds waiting for their turn outside the ring entrance. So what sport is it that you do, Sarah Louise Stridgen? So we can have that in flyball. There can be a lot of people milling around the ring. I cue watching from afar for first year and went at the end. Yeah, I think there are ways around it. I think we can train for this, but I think we have to be realistic. I mean, 20 minutes is a really long time. And I do believe that some dogs can overcome their reactivity completely, as long as like their space isn't encroached too much and you're not asking too much of them. So I think for some of you it's really doable. And if you train correctly, it's doable, but 20 minutes is a long time for any dog. They're all going to get like wound up and stuff, surely. So yeah, we can have, at flyball, we can have people all the way around the ring. And even with our non-reactive dogs, we don't want them around the ring. We want them to be like chilled as possible. So we'll sort of go down maybe 5 minutes before we're going to be called in, and we'll hang back. We'll hang way back. And one of our team members will be around the arena, and they'll let us know when it's our turn. They'll just wave us in and then we'll go in. So that's what we do. Flyover came queuing after a year, and I think Fly is pretty reactive from what I remember. So that's massively positive. So it definitely can be done. It's just something that you need to take into consideration, what you're asking of your dog, and where possible, have somebody queue for you. Or, you know, if you've got a friend that's queuing, put a cone in with your face on or something, move that along. And then separately work on teaching them to queue and teaching them to be calm. There are lots of calm protocols, and actually I think Laura Donaldson's talk on the slow thinking is life-saving will cover some of that, and Control Unleashed will help you an awful lot with that, because they do the mat training and stuff. Because you don't want to be working your dog while it's waiting to go in to perform complete an agility course. That you want them fresh. So there are going to be protocols that you can follow. Control Unleashed is your friend. So I'm going to talk about my little dog Neptune. She is a Australian working Kelpie. She is reactive. We'd done loads of reactivity work before lockdown. We'd got really good, and then lockdown happened, and I just took the easy way out and chose not to go anywhere where there were other people or dogs. Angela Davis, I remain hopeful. My boys worked at flyball with Stooge. Dogs playing tuggy in the run back area of the other lane. We'll have to go back a few steps as we haven't trained for ages due to COVID. Yep, definitely go back some steps. Lisa Rhett was very fearful and could be reactive. He's now one of the best, but he will hand target me very hard if he feels uncomfortable and wants removing. Oh my god, that's lovely. So that's the push button, start buttons type behaviours that somebody did a talk on that, and it wasn't called start buttons, so that's really not helpful of me. That was to do with Control Unleashed as well. I can't remember what it was, I'm sorry. Tina Hatcher, I used to have to hide with Millie and had someone call me in last. Yeah. Yeah, so Neptune. Now, she's reactive. She was difficult. So I'd got her doing the full flyball run absolutely perfectly. I'd even got her racing against another dog, and then it was like, right, okay, time to introduce her to a new environment. It wasn't a show environment. It was a get together with another team, basically. So we were racing against another dog that she'd never met before, and yeah, it was a complete mess. She would complete her run and then go and chase the other dog and then go and bark and then do laps of the whole training area and just bark and bark and bark, and then she wouldn't come back to me. Her recall went out the window. It was absolute chaos. And I worked so hard with her and it all just fell apart. So I went away after pulling myself back together, because it got to me. I'm a reactive dog owner. Sometimes they get to you and they break you, but you've got to pick yourself back up and work your way through it. So with Neptune, I was kind of rattling my brains as to what it is that is so difficult for her. Yes, okay, she made a mistake, she messed up, she went and she reacted and started being silly, because that's kind of one of her things that she does. She's one of those who's fight, flight, freeze, and frolic, I think is the term that a lot of people use. She's one of those, so she'll start being really, really silly. When she's excited or frustrated or feeling worried, she goes to being silly. So she was doing all of that. So yeah, a few days later, I was just racking my brains about her, and one thing that we've always known about her that didn't occur to me, because I'm human and I am not perfect, I went to get hold of her and there was another dog near her, and I stopped myself, because if you touch Neptune either with lead or hands, and that only needs to be like doesn't need to be a soft touch, she's okay with. You can stroke her and stuff, but you can't put any pressure on her. She'll react, and we've known this always. So it suddenly dawned on me, God darn it, I know what her problem is. She doesn't want to be lined up. She doesn't want to be restrained, because there's all these other dogs around her that she's not comfortable with. And she knows when she's put in that situation, she reacts. So what's she going to do? I just won't come back to you. I'll run around like an idiot. That's easier. That's not going to put me in that situation. Clever little girl. I mean, it took her a really long time for me to catch on to that. Bless her. That's her now, yes. But I did get there eventually. And the thing that we do now is she's totally cool with, she's done her run, she comes back, she tugs, then she gets a treat, and then we have a hand target, so she comes and touches, then she gets another treat, then I give this cue, which is for her to come and put her collar in my hand, so that it's all on her terms. She says, yep, I'm cool, okay, you can take hold of me now. So she's fine with being picked up and stuff, just not when she is in an area where she feels threatened for whatever reason. I don't particularly know why she has this issue, but it's her issue, and it's her right to have to feel that way. It's my job to find a way that's going to make her feel comfortable. So why is Daryl sorry? I dread to think. I don't know why Daryl's sorry. So yeah, so we had to work a way around her not wanting. I mean, she's fine to be lined up. She's fine to do all that, as long as she says, yeah, it's okay, let's do this. If she hasn't said that, it doesn't work. So that's her little story. I've probably not explained it very well, but it's more about finding, because some dogs have got real particular reasons for doing the things that they do, and if you can work it out and you can come up with a plan that suits them, that they are consenting to, because the whole consent thing is so important. Oh, Daryl, she's barking at me, Mr. I won't come around and be around and make any noise and distract the dogs. Thanks. Yeah, so that was Neptune. Another thing to consider, and it's something that people don't do often enough, is speaking to your fellow competitors and explaining, I've got a reactive dog. So for one thing, they will give you space, and for the other thing, Daryl, I'm not sure she heard the car. I don't think she did. I think Flossie the sheep is wandering around, and that's what she's barking at. Unless she drove the car past, which I don't think you did. Sorry, you're totally distracting me. Stop it. Sorry, that's my other half. If you're more Neptune. Oh, she was getting a bit silly there. Hopefully she'll stop now. If you're a little bit more open and honest, other people will be a little bit more open and honest, and hopefully there'll be less of the judging, because people are a bit judgmental. Oh, that dog's reactive, and that dog's this, and that dog's that. Let's all do a little bit less of that, and feel that we can be more open and honest about our dogs. So one of my dogs, I've said, is aggressive. He's not reactive. He'll only really bark at another dog if, I don't know, they're like 10 to 20 foot away and they're eyeballing him. Then he'll react to them. Other than that, he genuinely doesn't care. But if a dog is within 5 to 10 foot, I've never really measured it, of his space, and it looks like it wants to interact with him, that's what will set him off. So I try to make sure that at Flyball, the world and his wife knows that Lyric is aggressive. Because the last thing I want to do is have them putting their baby dog, their green dog, that might make a mistake because they're not robots, against Lyric. Because that could be disastrous. And in all honesty, actually, I do think he's been chased down the lane once. I think, and he was totally fine. He's got tunnel vision when he's at Flyball. He's so focused on what he's doing. He's a border collie, which is quite a typical trait of border collies. Once they're doing their job, they're just on the ball. And yeah, so I think he did get chased once, and he came back to his tug, and people moved that dog away from Lyric. But I make sure that people know that he is dog aggressive, and if people come up to me and say, and they do, we're doing this more and more in Flyball now, I've found, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. People are coming up to me the morning of a race and saying, I've got a green dog, we're racing against you on race 3 or whatever, do you have some dogs that I can put this dog in against? And it'll either be a case of, yes, we do actually, you know, if it chases this dog once, because in Flyball you get 2 strikes, and if you've done, you get, it's been too long. I'm going to say you get 2 strikes and the third you're out, but it might be you get 1 strike and the second you're out. I can't remember. Really sorry about that. That's really terrible, seeing as I was the person who wrote our rules. Okay, so ignore that. But yeah, so if their dog has chased our dog once, that's no big deal. It's not going to upset our dog. Making sure that that dog is going to be one that can totally handle it. So yeah, be a little bit more upfront and open and honest to other people. Donna Maria, Tessie is hard work. We have worked so hard with her, but after all this time off, it's going to be tiny steps back. We will get back. Don't say if we ever get back. Yeah, it's always going to be tiny steps back. Third, you're out. Thanks, Sam. So really, yeah, if you get 3 strikes and you're out, so on the one it's a mistake, you want to make sure that second one doesn't happen, because then you've got no more lives left. And we had one of our dogs. He just did his first day of racing, the last competition that we did before lockdown, and he is a Kelpie cross collie called Gambit, and we have been working with him for a really long time because he is a little bit reactive. He's more reactive when he's on lead. When he's at Flyball, he's pretty cool, but he has a tendency to chase. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't even run around them. He'll just chase them and be like, oh, yeah, whatever, and then go away if they're not, once they stop moving. So his first day of racing, that was like, there's a potential that he's going to chase here. He literally has never, ever chased at training. We've put him against other dogs. We've put him against dogs that he doesn't know. We have tested him to his limit. But at a show, at a competition environment, it can be so different, it can be so overwhelming, anything can happen. So, the night before our race, I sent all the team captains that we were racing against a message saying, I've got this dog, he's green, he might chase. He never has done. There's a chance it's going to happen because, you know, again, they're not robots. I'm only planning to race him in 3 of 6 races. Is there a dog that I can safely race him against in your team? And some of them came back and said, no, it's not safe. And some of them came back and said, yes. Okay, so that enabled us to put him into a race. He did half a day's racing because his head wobbles quite quickly. So we didn't want to ask too much of him, and he was 100% successful. He didn't chase at all. Obviously, I didn't need to ask that. But the point is, I want to make sure that I'm risk assessing all the way through, that I'm making sure that as much as possible, I am doing all I can to make sure that dog has a successful day at whatever it is they're doing. So yeah, that was, and then lockdown happened, but he did absolutely awesome. The other thing is to risk assess all the time. So risk assess the environment. Is there a show not a show, a circus or a festival or something going on that's going to blow your dog's mind, is there a gun dog shoot or something nearby where you can hear gunshots? Because that has happened before, and some dogs are really freaked out by gunshots. If you're finding you're in that environment and there's something in this environment that's going to upset your dog, do you know what? The best thing to do is you don't race or compete your dog that day. Because chances of them getting something wrong and them having a bad memory from it, a traumatic event from it, is pretty high. And the last thing you want is for this sport that they really enjoy to be ruined by something that you're going to kick yourself in after, you know, you thought, I'm not so keen on that, but I'm going to go and do it anyway because my dog's all prepared and he's all ready. And then something happens and it upsets your dog, and you're going to be so angry with yourself. I knew I shouldn't have raced him. I knew I shouldn't have done it, but you went and did it anyway. Easiest thing is, if in doubt, don't do it. So then we move on to what a lot of you suffer with. I have suffered with it in myself in the past, but I think I'm pretty good now, hopefully, is owner anxiety. People that have these reactive dogs, they get almost as worked up as their dogs do, because they predict the bad things that are going to happen and they get really worked up. So you also need to make sure that you are looking after yourself as well as your dog. And for example, the green dog that we raced that was a bit of a chaser, he's a little bit reactive but totally cool in the racing environment. I think from memory, and Alicia's gone now I think, but she could correct me if I'm wrong, that the start of, I think the first 2 races Alicia raced him absolutely brilliantly, and then the last race she had a little bit of a wobble and was like, oh, I just can't do it. I don't know if something had happened to her that had upset her earlier, but she said to me, can you do it? Because she knows that I will look after Gambit. She knows that he can do it and that he was doing so well, and she didn't want to pull him, and she wanted to watch him succeed, and he did. So I took him, he did it, he was awesome, she was awesome, it was great. So that's something, where possible, depending on what sport you're in and what sort of close connections you have, if there is someone that you trust, that knows how your dog works, that understands to watch them and to read them and all that lot, and you can completely 100% trust them with your dog, and you're just feeling that, I just don't feel up to it, that's an option. To say to somebody, can you do this for me? And that person say, yes, absolutely, of course I can. Now, that isn't for everybody, and I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm just saying that's an option and something to be aware of. What was said here? Chasing is going to be my biggest issue with Ozma. Not if you do it right, Rachel. Do you find that if the owner is nervous, it affects the dog? Yep, my lad will work for our team captain, and I do wonder if that would be better for him. It's difficult. I like to be able to do a little bit of both. So they do pick up on our anxiety, and it's not necessarily that it's our anxiety itself, although, you know, dogs can scent things that are absolutely like way beyond our comprehension. So perhaps we give off a scent, I don't know. But we also do things. We'll move our body in a certain way. We'll breathe in a certain way. There'll be certain cues that they're picking up on that we're anxious because we're jerky movements or whatever. So yes, and then that will be a predictor of, uh-oh, something bad's going to happen. So I need another drink, sorry. So yes, they can pick up on our anxiety, and I think, I don't know much about human psychology, but I think there are probably exercises that you guys that are anxious about these things can do to help you, and where possible, do a little bit of watch your team captain working with your dog, and then take over and do a little session and then hand back, so that it's positive. You get a quick go, and the longer you allow yourself in a position where you don't feel comfortable, the more likely it is for it to go wrong, because the same applies to dogs completely. So if you only give yourself a short period of time to complete an exercise with your dog, the chances of it going wrong are smaller. So that is definitely something that I would recommend you do. Start doing short stints with him to make sure that you build up your own confidence, because it's just as important as your dog's. Oh God, someone said it was 3. What's Tina said? I have to go back now. 1 strike, 2. It was 2 strikes. I'm sorry. So if you're, do you know what? I'm not going to argue that because I genuinely can't remember. You just answered my question. Thank you. It's hard to, so Kathy McDonald, it's hard to remember all the calm self-talk when you know your dog is going to go crazy barking when she sees another dog. Redirecting only seems to work if you see the dog before we do and start treating before. Once the reaction starts, it's hard to redirect her and then stay calm at the same time. So, Kathy, you need to start taking your dog, and I'm hoping that this is possible. You need to start taking your dog somewhere where they're not going to see lots of dogs. If that means taking them out in the car and finding somewhere, that's what you need to do. If you're constantly failing with having a successful walk with your dog, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. So you need to find somewhere. I tend to do like when I do one-to-one sessions with reactive dogs, I go to places that are on lead only. So like the little like the town parks and things where there's like a play area for kids, and it's on lead for dogs only, and there's good vision around, and you only need to spend like 10 minutes. If you've met, for you, if you're really quite worked up about it, do 1 dog and then go. But make sure you've got that space. Remember your space. If they don't have space, they can't cope. Once they're in that reactive state, they can't learn. They can't take in information, because I could use all the proper brain speak if I'd remembered it all, but I don't. So their brains are firing all sorts of neurons and whatever's going on in their stuff, and cortisol, know that one, is being released, and they're getting all stressed, and they can't learn. They are, it's not that they're ignoring you, it's not that they're being obnoxious or whatever, they literally cannot learn. So you need to be taking your dog to an environment where it can learn, where it can be calm, where it can take in this information and start to change the way it sees things. I'm going to get to your questions in a minute, because I'm just going to finish off saying my bit, because I'm pretty much done. Is that if you decide at any point that the sport you're in isn't right for you, because this is going into what I was saying anyway, that's okay. You don't have to compete in your dog sport. You can choose another sport, or you can choose not to compete your dog at all. You don't have to, especially if you're getting so worked up that you're dreading doing these activities, because yes, it's wonderful, we do these things for our dogs love it, you know, your dog could be absolutely rocking it, but you're still really getting worked up and anxious. If you don't want to do it, that is okay. You don't have to compete your dog in sport. Or if you want to take a break, give yourself some self-care time, take a break and get back into it. Or perhaps you need to change the company that you keep, because sometimes people can be less than supportive and telling you what you should be doing with your dog, and that can be upsetting as well. So just like I said to Kathy, I think it was, that putting your dog in the right environment to learn, you also need to put yourself in the right environment as well, because if you're constantly surrounding yourself by negative comments and people, that's not going to help you either. So always tell yourself, because somebody said this to me the other day, one of my team members, that it is okay to have dogs that are not okay. There are so many people that have reactive dogs. You are not alone. And there are people out there that can help you. So hopefully you have found my ramblings interesting, and now we've got like 5 minutes. I'm allowed to run over, so that's cool, to do some questions. So I will just run through what has said. Yes, that was Kathy. Flyball is an escape for my Hugo and I. He's a reactive border collie, but in the ring he's a completely different dog. He's barking because he's excited, and oh, I've lost it. Barking because he's excited, and once he's raced, he can come out of the ring without having to go at anybody. On the way in, he's the opposite because he's so worked up. Flyball is the only place I can relax with him, and at flyball training, I can have him out off the lead with all the dogs and not have to worry. It's amazing. Yeah, once they've gotten to the point where they've learned this sport, because you can have a lot of dogs that have already done the sport and then something happens and they become a reactive or aggressive dog. That sport is always their safe place and they're so focused on what they're doing. And the other thing I didn't actually quite get into was with the once you're getting closer and closer to the ring, you introduce your dog to the show competition environment where it's really, really busy. You want to be able to take them close enough to the ring where, yes, chances are they're going to get excited, but you need to know the difference between excited and fearful reactive. So all you need to do is say, can that dog disengage? Can you look at me? Can you perform something? Are you still in a thinking mode? If yes, awesome, we're good to go. If not, your dog's gone over threshold. So that's one way of testing things. Constantly asking your dog to disengage what it was doing. Kathy, we try to find odd times, but we live in a dog neighbourhood. Do you drive, Kathy? If you drive, I would definitely start driving out to somewhere that is less dog heavy. If not, you might need to change the times of day that you're taking your dogs out. There is a book called The Midnight Dog Walkers that is about people that take their dogs out at like really early in the morning and stuff so that they can avoid seeing other dogs all the time, because seeing lots of dogs on a single walk is like, say, step 10, and you need to start with seeing 1 or 2 dogs on a walk on step 1. You can't jump in at step 10 and expect to be successful, because it just isn't going to work. Sandra's watching. Helen, there's so many people here, thank you. Also, this same dog is fine at daycare. You might find that it's not fine at daycare. It could be. I'm not saying he isn't, and it might just be that he's reactive when he's on lead. But it's very possible that that dog is actually overwhelmed and shut down at daycare. I used to run a daycare, and I have had to turn away dogs that people have brought in for socialisation and said they're okay, but they bark, and they get in and they become really meek and mild, and they'll just kind of go and sit in a corner. And they don't really interact, and I'll say, this is too much for your dog. I did, tried to explain this in the first place, but they don't listen. So it might be that he's a little bit overwhelmed, so maybe ask for some video of him. If he's running around and playing and interacting appropriately, then great, I'm wrong. He's absolutely fine in daycare and he's just lead reactive, but you might find that actually it's all a little bit much for him. Angela, we have worked on retrieving a dead ball next to the dog's training in the lane with Murph on a long line. If you need your dog on a long line, that means they're not ready. That's telling me you're expecting him to get it wrong. And so that means he's not quite ready. So you need to go back a few stages. He needs to be able to perform the retrieving of a dead ball 100% successfully before introducing another dog, and then you need to introduce another dog at a distance that he doesn't find threatening, that he can still perform that activity. If he gets it wrong, that dog's too close. Okay? So, any more questions? I will hang about for another couple of minutes to see if anybody else pops up. But that's me done. Just to say that, yeah, there's a lot of work involved in having reactive dogs. There's a lot of work involved in living with a reactive dog. But there are tons of us that have them. And then, anything's possible. If you put in the hard work and training, and yes, it is hard work, and it's extra hard work for us that have got reactive dogs, it is totally achievable. He did, but it was my anxiety that stopped him. Okay, if that makes you feel more comfortable, then I'm cool with that. Thank you so much for your time, fabulous as usual. Thanks, Lynn. Okay, so I'm going to go, and hopefully you have something to take away from that, and that you've learned something from that, and you're all going to go ahead and put your dogs in situations where they're totally successful, and we'll see them in flyball, agility, hoopers, disc dog, and all that kind of stuff. So thanks.